Welcome everyone. Wow, like to see the room so full of people, it makes my heart so happy. So thank you all for showing up on a winter night tonight and being here. And yeah, thank you to the Mayor of Fremantle, Hannah, for being here as well. It's amazing. And my partner and my sister and family up the back, it's great. But today is all about the voice to Parliament, why it failed, and looking at it 1 year on. And so before we begin, I'd like to welcome Ingrid Cumming, who will do the Welcome to Country.
You can have that one.
I can have that one. Oh, I get
actually, that's actually more my height. Hang on.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I'm a bit too big for that one. Just technical difficulties. Anyway, my name is Dillian. I use they, it, and my Noongar name is Kulbadi, which is after the magpie. For any of you wondering, this is Ingrid. She's my mother. She's very lovely. She's a she, her. And her totem is her Noongar name. It's Noriak, which is after the Carnaby cockatoo. You might have heard of me. You've definitely heard of her. We're both here to welcome you to country. Mum, would you like to take it from here?
Thank you, Dillian. I bring Dillian tonight and Kaya. Yeah, calling cooperative wearing Jenning Yeranga Nunawa Jenjenku. Cooperative Butcher. Hello to all of the men, women and people here tonight, and we just want to send out the good energy to all of you gathering here in beautiful Wayilap or Fremantle. Very special place for our family. We looked after this place for quite some time, and I want to acknowledge the other incredible Wajak, Noongar and Waita First Nations mob who are also here today, and our incredible allies as well who have stood by us through a pretty incredible year of reflection and inflection, I'll call it. So, but no more do I love all of the people sitting on the stage who have all been part of my inspiration and support over the last year. So thank you to all of you and my sister Emma. But I bring Dillian to welcomes because when I was given my booker by some pretty incredible female elders many years ago, they said, you always acknowledge your elders, past and present, but we need to make sure you young fellas feel, inspired enough to take on the leadership roles. We need to give you the practice before we just chuck you into, the important work, things like welcomes. So I bring Dillian because on the day I was given my booker, that one of these is actually Dillian's, and they gave my two children their bookers, smaller versions, to say, make sure you carry on Mum's legacy, but in your own beautiful and unique way. So when I leave this place, Dillian will proudly wear the skins that were given to us and carry on the work, and then little sister, or Prince Harry, the second in waiting, will get their chance maybe one day too. But most importantly, I bring Dillian because on the 14th of October at about 6:38 p.m, this happened. I held my child's hand so very tightly as I sobbed uncontrollably. And I remember you turning to me and saying, "It's going to be all right, Mum. I promise you it's going to be all right." Now, in that situation, I should have been the one turning to them, but I couldn't. And you have been my strength and my everything through what has been a very, very hard year.
I would like to say, though, as strong as I may have been, it's always hard on the rock of the family as well to keep us all together. While I was very strong for Mum that day, I was hurting myself a bit too. I was sitting in my room when I got the news. Mum was in tears, very upset when she had told me that no, it had been a no majority except for like one territory, and I was in shock for about 10 minutes, just kind of stood there, my mouth open as Mum kind of went upstairs, and after about 10 minutes when the shock was over, I had gone up to comfort her, but she was in the shower, so I remember just sitting on the couch, watching the news, trying not to feel furious about what I was seeing and what some of the politicians, I'm not going to say anyone in particular, but what some of them were saying. And then Mum got out, and as she just said, I just held her hand, comforted her, just for both of us, really. Just a very sad day, maybe one of the saddest of my life. And I just try not to be upset about it and try to just keep moving forward. Just, not much to say on that.
And I remember apologising to you, my baby, saying, I'm so sorry I haven't done enough in my time for you to not have to live through that. So it comes back on us mob, doesn't it, somehow? I'm not quite sure why. But for the last year, it's been hard. There's been a lot of crying, there's been a lot of tears, there's been a lot of reflection and inflection, but there's been an incredible amount of strength. And it's seen up on this panel, and it's seen in this room. And Auntie Carol, where you think as a young fella you're going to support your old fellas, I say old with respect, you know that. But just those text messages, that love and that care, and it did. And what the best outcome of this referendum, if you can call anything a good outcome, is showing that continual strength and resilience of not just our First Nations mob, but our allies to keep showing up. So on behalf of my elders past and present, the call to action is just keep showing up and do it with love. As Stan Grant said, with the love of our people, you, me, us, together, because it's these fellas here we're doing it for at the end of the day. So, Wanji Nitch and Yunga Buja, welcome to beautiful country. Nalaka Wirin Kwapradawa, our spirits are good. Nunak Wirin Kwaprada, your spirits are good. Ngala Wirin Jenjenku Burawa, and may our good spirits always travel forward together. Welcome to country, everybody, and have a great night. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Ingrid, for that beautiful welcome to country. And it's always so heartwarming and moving when you see the implications that have happened from the voice, but seeing how it affects us. Because at the end of the day, it's our life. We live it, we breathe it. It's our family, it's our community, it's really hard. And so tonight, it's all about 1 year on from the failed Voice to Parliament referendum of last year, 2023. So we'll explore the social and cultural implications which stem from the voice, what it means for us, and talk about a few key themes from it. What does it look like for us as Indigenous people when it comes to trust? What happens next? What happens with services in our communities? Has that stopped? Is it going? Is funding going to continue for the people that need it most? All of these questions we'll answer tonight. So it's a very significant time, and I'd like to introduce the amazing panel before me, but I just realised I haven't introduced myself, so I'll do that briefly. So my name's Emma Garland. I'm a Wodjuk, Balladong and Nyungar woman, also with ties to Yamaji and Nibali country in Western Australia. And it's my absolute pleasure to be here, to be able to moderate this discussion with my dear family, friends and colleagues who have been here and been the backbone of a lot of this last year, and even before that for me. So we're all family, we're all here to support each other, and I think that's the main thing, just having the connection to each other. That's the most powerful thing that you can have. So I'll introduce Auntie Carol first. So Carol Innes AM is a really distinguished Noongar leader that's been working in this space for a very long time. She's currently the director of Danju Colony at University of Western Australia, and you might have seen her work around in many places and spaces across the state, and she's also a director of the Art Gallery of Western Australia. So we're very lucky to have Carol as our leader here and always supporting us. And as Ingrid said, you know, those text messages, I received them from you as well. It wasn't easy, but seeing my phone light up and get those messages even now, I really appreciate it. So thank you. Next we have Sophie Coffin. So Sophie is the WA Youth Representative for the Voice to Parliament as well for the Uluru Statement from the Heart. Sophie is a lawyer and she also was previously the Principal Associate to the Chief Justice Quinlan at the Supreme Court of Western Australia. And Sophie has been working tirelessly in this space for a very long time, doing so much advocacy work, many speeches. So many speeches, many public events like this, packed rooms of people, and we don't get, for these events as well, we don't do it because, you know, we have to. We do it because it's what we need to do. So, thank you. Tyson This is the man that has all the data, he has all the legal expertise. He's a lawyer at a top-tier law firm in Perth. So we've got a few lawyers on the panel, actually. And you've been kicking goals for such a long time. I remember when you were a student at UWA and would have our catch-ups, and so just seeing how far you've come now and doing all this work and advocacy, it's so powerful, and I'm very proud of everything that you're doing, so thank you for being here. And then we have Jade Dolman. So you're an amazing Noongar artist, an Eastern Arrernte woman, and some of your art is in here, right, in this room? Is it tonight or? No, not this. Oh, not tonight. Last revealed. But you would have seen her artwork because it's in hotels in Perth, at universities, all across many public art displays in Perth. So one day you can paint my house, maybe. Love that. So thank you to all of our panellists for being here. And the first question that I have is to Auntie Carol, and it's around trust. Because without trust, what do you have? It's a really big determinant for success. So if we look to the Voice to Parliament, how has a failure of the Voice to Parliament impacted trust with our communities?
Well, this is a big question. The whole thing around trust for all of us is that I don't think many of us had trust in the process. So the whole... we were asking people to make a decision about us who didn't even know anything about us. So the level of trust was already gone. And when I think about that, there was like a naivety that we shouldn't have continued on the process, I think, for me. Because the whole thing around a referendum was supposed to be a bipartisan approach. When we got to the voting time, someone reneged on the deal. And I think that was where they should have been pulled to account, that an agreement, trust, was pulled out of that because they reneged on the deal and chose to take a journey that caused such a rift within the nation. And it was like we had a referendum to decide how racist Australia was. And I think they should take that as their win, that they demonstrated that, we proved that. But I think, for me, a lot of our people weren't up with that either. A lot of our people in the regions, in the smaller communities, didn't really understand the process of what was being argued. And it was, even in some of the social media, some of our mob were pitching up against what we were trying to do. For those, many of us who were involved in advocacy, change, rights, we were fighting with our hearts, mind and bodies. And many people were feeling the pain of not just being able to have running water, electricity. That's what we deal with every day. So while I think of it's been a failure on the way in which Aboriginal people and Torres Strait Islander people are treated in this country. So it's okay for us to live in inadequate housing. It's okay for us to have be promoted about all our mob are in jail, that we all just end up in jail. And it was a really lovely little quote I read out to these guys just before we came in, that in Albany, one of the elders basically said, why are we always talking about the number of people in the Albany prison when we've got more ratepayers in Albany, Indigenous ratepayers in Albany? So when are we going to flip the coin and start thinking about the positive contribution that our people make? A whole lot of thing around trust is our mob have never had adequate services, because many of the people delivering those services to our community have only been doing it for a short time. Many of them don't even know the impact of what happened to our people. So are they giving us the best service possible? Probably not. So if you think about the trust element in that, there's a lot. The steps to be taken is that, which we should have done last year, was around educating and education. The lacking part of what people didn't know is that people didn't make an effort to understand what they were in the process for, and used, the good intention were walking the streets, so they were putting their hearts, mind and body into the process. The others were using social media to attack that process. And we all know social media has impact faster, quicker, when everyone's got a telephone. And you can run it on a reel, or you can keep pushing it out there. what we didn't encounter in most of part of this is that many of our elders too, we trusted a process and we didn't probably consider what the outcome would be, because many of our elders have gone through far worse than what we all encountered. So I know for me in this whole process is that if you're going to engage with any of our people, you've got to get to know us, build a relationship with us to move further. And many parts of what happens for us, we are forgotten about. And I'm really proud to be part of this conversation. So thank you, Emma, for bringing us all together. But I think we need to unpack more than just trust, because I think the big part of change is that how can you have a relationship and make a decision about something if you don't put the effort in?
Yeah, it's very powerful what you've just said, and particularly when you're saying, it's online, when you can get information instant. That's really what I think won the no vote. All the misinformation, the lies, the fear-mongering, the spreading of it, instantly, quick. It didn't matter what you said. You could have said anything, but people believe it. Once you can incite that level of fear in people for them to vote no, then they did. So that was hard, but so the next question is more about policy and political process, and what does that mean for us now without having a voice to Parliament? Do we have a voice? South Australia has a statutory-based voice to Parliament. Will WA, I don't know what will happen here. How do Aboriginal people continue to have a voice? So I think, Tyson, I would like to ask you the question of what role does Aboriginal voices have in policy and political process going forward?
Thanks, Emma, and thanks, Annika, for that. I think tonight is my first engagement of public speaking since the result. So that was October last year, and so this is my first event, so it's really good to see everyone here and for it to sell out. Even those volunteering, sell out. Didn't pay to be here. Anyway, so the how Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander voices can be involved and be implemented in the decision-making processes. It's no matter where you look at it, whether it's at volunteering bodies, local governments, federal, special appointees. I think the collective in the room, that what makes it the impact and give it that credibility. And from there, I would like to mention that last year the Productivity Commission, they released a draft report on the review of the national agreement on closing the gap, and a short extract of that kind of touches base on what Annika said about the trust and about the process there. And I quote, there appears to be an assumption that government knows best, which is contrary to the principle of a shared decision-making in the agreement. Too many government agencies are implementing versions of their shared decision-making that's involved in consultating with First Nations people on a predetermined solution rather than collaborating on the problem and co-designing a solution. And I think that snippet there really sums up the power dynamics and about how it's almost the rules of engagement. How do we engage with these voices? Like, are we just there just to tick the box, or are we there to actually formulate some policy and actually get the groundwork? Because the role of these voices are very critical, because not just from the diverse perspective, there's someone with lived experience, or from a different area they might know that particular knowledge to someone else, but it's also that historical context that might be missing out of an ordinary conversation. And this context may relate to caring for country, the economic perspective, or the social value and community needs at that time. For example, me being Port Hedland. You know, I don't live there, so I wouldn't just assume that the fuel price is $2.50 today, because I'm not there. I hope that's a good analogy. Well, you get the point. And also, I'll finish with that. I think having a First Nation people who their voices lead the discussion, they can really control the narrative and the language around the objectives and the aims of his policy. Their voices may remove the deficit language or perspective, and it might remove that saviour mentality that, well, you know, we know what's good for you people, so you need to take it with both hands. So, yeah.
So what Tyson really talked about is co-design, the importance of it. Don't assume as well. Don't just assume because something happened in the past that it's what's currently happening now. And the solutions are right there. If the Productivity Commission have reports on it, we've had so many recommendations, so many reports, so many inquiries happen. But when will it be implemented? When will the government do it? And when will these changes be made? So, yeah, very powerful. Soph. So you're a lawyer and you work tirelessly during The Voice. And one of the big things that I'd like to ask you is around Indigenous identity. Like, where does this leave us, and how does it kind of shape who we are as a nation going forward?
Thanks, Emma, and thanks, Tyson, Auntie Carol, and also to everyone for being here. I felt, as a result of that referendum, that people didn't care, and so it's really nice to see so many people come out and actually want to hear from us and want to hear our reflections on the outcome of this. So in terms of identity, I think I will speak from a personal point of view, because that's really what I know best. And I just want to talk about what that result felt like for me. It really was a rejection of who we are as people, our identity and our culture. That's what it felt like. It was saying no to such a simple ask, just for recognising our culture. That's the oldest continuing culture in the world. It's something to be so proud of for the rest of Australia, I would have thought. But no to that, and no to having a voice in issues that affect us, that are about us, that wouldn't have negatively impacted anyone else's life. That was kind of, if I can say this, like a paternalistic slap in the face after we'd worked so tirelessly for so long and asked for something that over 80% of us agreed on, which has never happened before. And Tyson and I were actually in Sydney when the result happened, and I couldn't leave my room, and I was so upset because of just how devastating it is. And I say that because after that result, I couldn't help but look at people and assume they voted a certain way, and from that assume that they respect us or don't respect us. And I still do that, and I try not to, but I can't help it. And being in Sydney, I thought, I don't even want to go back to WA because of how strong the no vote was. And I also don't really want to live in this country anymore. But why should I have to feel like that when our people have been here forever? It didn't feel fair. So it was very difficult, and it's something that I think all of us are still processing, and it can be hard to speak about, but I appreciate everyone coming and wanting to hear about that. And in terms of empowering and reaffirming that identity, I think it's about trying to think positively, which I'm still trying to actively do about the whole thing, but remembering that we're the oldest continuing culture in the world for a reason. We're strong and we're resilient. And did you want to ask something? Oh. We're strong and resilient, and we're educated and we're intelligent, and we've overcome every obstacle that's ever been put in our way for 60,000 years plus. Massacres, genocide, the whole colonial agenda. And so this is just another bump in the road, and I think we have to just focus on that and keep moving forward. within ourselves and for the wider community to also think about it that way.
When you say it like, you know, you can't look at people the same, knowing that most of Australia voted no, it's hard. That's really tough as well. So, yeah, I don't even know what to say. How do we it's so hard, isn't it? But the next question's for you, Jade, as an artist that has lots of different clients, Aboriginal, non-Aboriginal, and the art world is a whole different ball game when it comes to Aboriginal art. It's everywhere. Like, we're immersed in it now tonight, and it's beautiful and gorgeous. But in your experience from The Voice, has it been different being an Aboriginal artist after The Voice to Parliament? Have you noticed much in the last year that's changed for you?
Thanks, Emma. Thanks, everyone else. Thanks for coming here today. It's hard to talk on, well, I can't talk on behalf of anyone else's experience or the art industry as a whole, but from what I've noticed, I feel like not much has changed in the arts industry. I feel like we're all still doing our truth-telling through art. We're still loud and proud about our stories, and if anything, our stories have become more honest, more brutally honest. Whether or not it's hard to listen, we're still there and we're still doing it. Yeah, it's a hard topic to talk about, and I also haven't really spoken about it in any kind of public arena. And yeah, I think just seeing your names here that were on the panel made me really want to be a part of this conversation. And I tuned into the panel last year and I thought it was really inspiring and powerful. And, you know, the leadership that was shown leading up to the referendum was phenomenal, and seeing a lot of our mob represent us and lead the way, and also a lot of non-Indigenous mob that were creating platforms for us, I think was really beautiful to see. But having the result was definitely very disheartening, and I've never felt so disconnected from the world.
Yeah, it's hard for us to talk about this as well, because it's not just like a referendum for us, it's our life. And so, like, it is hard. It's actually really draining, but so thank you for being here. So you're going to make me cry. Where's the
I knew it was
tissues?
coming, even on the way in, I was like,
Look,
oh
there's
no.
a box there coming. So it's really hard. And I mean, I will just wait a few seconds, but yeah, take your time, no rush. But it's hard because it's our life. We live and breathe this. This is like us, you know. We've been through so much in this country already. Our families, our elders, you know, everything that you had to put up with, it's tough. But next question is around reconciliation, and Ani Carroll, being the immediate past co-chair of Reconciliation Western Australia, and yeah, where does this leave us for reconciliation? Do you, in the future, do you think, you know, Professor Marcia Langton famously said after the Voice to Parliament failure, she said reconciliation is dead. And that was her statement, she said, and that was all over the media everywhere. And she said, we're not going to reconcile in Australia, it's over, that's it. Is it over?
If we're going to be brutally honest, I was glad my term was finishing, to be honest. I'd finished 7 years trying to work with government, private sector, corporate industry, community, to elevate a platform where we can come together and make a difference together. But, you know, Soph talked about being quite upset. I think I knew it was coming because we had people on the East Coast were texting us to say it's over, done, the numbers are done. And anger, I don't know when I stopped being angry. So from October to probably March was a lot of anger inside. The hardest thing for me was I was sitting in the hairdressers getting my hair done on just before the vote, and they were bringing in the no vote pamphlets into the hairdresser, and I thought, oh gosh, I was wanting to get a haircut. I didn't feel like I wanted to go all politic. And I felt it in the hairdresser, and then the conversation started. And I just said, I grabbed her hand, I said, stop. And she goes, what are you doing? I said, I won't finish my hair. Don't worry, I'll go. And my hair needed to be dry, and I said, no, I didn't come here. I don't even know if I was paid for anything. Oh my God, I walk out of that hairdresser. I haven't been back in there since. But I don't even know if I paid, because I just left. But I couldn't deal with it. The way that he came in, and I'll never forget it, and that was my last feeling of going back in. And I'd see the girls, and I'd always support our local shops and stuff. But it was very prolific around our space, and the way that this man was doing the shop run was really hard. And it was harder for me to go back in the shops. I haven't done a lot of shopping. I won't go to the shopping centre. It has affected me, I know. I like online shopping. I don't mind that. It's a bit longer but you don't go and buy all the temptations. But I think for me, it influenced me a lot until March when we did Danju cooling in Kings Park, and when the elders came, because we were doing honouring our elders, and our elders jumped up like nothing happened. And I'm looking at them thinking, snap out of this. Because I was thinking, what am I holding on to? When they came to stand up and support us, to speak up for us and be a part of what we're doing together. And it took me a while to get over myself. That's not me, but my phone's gone off. I don't know who that is. But what I found through that process was that how resilient and strong our people were, and they are survivors. We're survivors. I'm a survivor. It didn't kill me. This process didn't kill me. And we had one elder drive from Geraldton to Perth, who's 92 years old, because he wanted to be with us to share his story. Nothing stops us from telling our story. Nothing takes away our identity. We can be black, loud and prouder like we are. But what it showed me is how fickle politics is. And everyone thinks it's okay for a politician, and they think and they want, and Hannah, not you, we won't go you, people who get elected into places and think that they can assert a certain authority, respect, but do they really understand the role of public life? That is the worst. Looking at Australia, if we had a spotlight on Australia, I think they were taking their advice from another ex-US president in the way that they behaved toward what we all did. I won't even acknowledge his name because I think he's such a disgust on diplomacy and, for what we deserve as people in this nation is that we can't keep going forward without the respect of the people from this country. And we had that in 1992 with Mabo. Mabo shifted the nation. 2023 made us feel like we were begging. We'd already been acknowledged. Terry Nellis was out the window. So there's a lot of more education that needs to happen for many people and all of you. Sophie said, and thank you for coming back in. And this has been hard for us. We're all sitting there thinking, can we do this? And I'm thinking, I've been doing this for too long. But one of the things for us is that the change brought a lot of stuff with us. When I think about our kids and codes, how many codes we've got to do with our different things. But when I think about a lot of this is it has allowed some people to think that they can railroad us, steamroll us ahead, forget about us. I remember sitting in a forum earlier this year and we had someone talk about we can't be prisoners of the past. What the hell is Anzac Day? What is that? You know, we have to acknowledge the truth. And that's what Anzac Day tells us. And it also gives an acknowledgement of our people who went to fight in wars when we weren't even acknowledged as human beings. You know, when I was born, I wasn't even acknowledged as a human being. And that happened for a lot of our elders. But I think for me, I had to learn to get over myself in the anger because it was only hurting me, not hurting anyone else. So I think a lot of the impact has been where relationships have to go a bit deeper. We need to try a little bit harder together. We need to show a little bit more generosity of spirit to be able to listen to each other. And I am really, from the bottom of my heart, I mean, I've gone out and I'm speaking to, this week, over 1,000 people this week, on all the different speaks I've done. And I've got another one to come down here tomorrow for another 80 people. But we will keep doing that because we've got a story to tell. You know, we'll keep doing this. We'll keep bouncing back like the clowns because we are strong and we and our old people have taught us that. So the relationship, I think, has been is that spotlight on politics. Any of you mob going to go into politics? You've got to change the process. Let's look at how we can change that. I think a big part of what can be done is we have to do the truth, tell the truth about what's happened across our nation. And we can do that together. It's not just rely on us, become the educators for us. So the role, what you're thinking, what you can do, is that you could be an educator for change, for your family, for whatever you part of what you influence. And I think we can do a lot more things together. I mean, we had one of the biggest reconciliation walks here in Perth that we've ever had. That's a sign. And I saw this as a positive because they keep talking about us as 3% of the nation. Well, guess what? We had nearly 6 million people walking with us. So let's hold on to the positive. That's how I could see this to get forward for myself. But I think, thank you for bringing your heart, your ears, your body to this thing tonight because this is our pain and we can share it with you. But the strength of you all turning up and being a part of this is really important for us. And I am glad I came, Em. These guys are, how come you can just get up and... It does hurt. I don't even want to go into the shops. I don't want to go into the shops because I saw what happened in my own shopping centre. So there's a lot more happening. I think education for me on this is the key. We can't talk about and think about great things if we don't build a relationship to walk together for change.
And I guess, everything you're saying there just rings true for so many of us here. And it really leads into our next question around representation. If we don't have a voice, where are we represented? You mentioned politicians and politics and how we need more Aboriginal people in those parts. But for you, Tyson, how do you think that we can move forward with representation without a voice, knowing that we have lots of different small advisory committees and, groups around the place, but you don't have to listen to them. There's no obligation. You can have all these groups, pay them a sitting fee, give them money, bring them together. They'll tell you what they want, but what do you have to do? Nothing. You don't have to implement what they say. So where do you think the future lies with representation, Tyson?
I think for representation, it has to be at the table and in the room. In particular, given how large Western Australia is, you look at being lived in Geraldton, and Geraldton is the Durack, and Durack is one of the largest electorates in Australia. It comes from Geraldton all the way up to Kununurra. Like, how can one person in Parliament represent that whole area? By the time I do the milk run to Kununurra, all the way down to Geraldton, something's happened. How can you be better informed, and what information are they relying on to tell them their perspectives of what's happening? Kununurra is a beautiful place, not from there, but, I visited a few times, and you think about all the touristy stuff like that, and you're thinking it's amazing, and then there's another side to it, but you don't hear about it. And then it's only when it's an election cycle that you do hear about it, and then it's like, this is what we're going to do. One of the lessons about the representation that I kind of picked up on or observed was that it's with respect to the self-determination of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. And there was this really common one I got was like, and that's a person who was against it was Senator Lydia Thorpe, and it was like, oh, but she's against it, so should I follow her or should I listen to you? And it was almost like, oh, but then because you don't, there's not a unanimous decision on it, then I don't know what I'm going to decide. And I think that's an unfair expectation that all groups or all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people need to have the same view on the same issue, which is that's something that I picked up on. And it kind of reminded me of the Howard days where it was, with Atzik, and he got rid of it because he was saying this is failed self-determination of actually what you wanted, and you can't come up with the right answer, unanimous answer, I'm going to get rid of it. So on that is, with the representation, I think it goes down to the engagement and lifting the standard of engagement as well. Having politicians attacking bureaucrats out in the community, people who don't have the media, can't hold a press conference, attacking elders, attacking community leaders. It's just so unfair where someone goes in and they hear one piece of information and that's it. So I think how we move forward is that we should be asking what are those standards, and really how do we foster like a community or a set of ground rules of how we engage in these conversations that are respectful, but also are respectful of the people in the room and the representation that they do ask it to come from.
And a big part of representation is youth and the young people moving forward, and how can they be best represented. And Sophie, you did so much work in this space with young people, and you still do now, which is amazing. So how can we make sure that the young Aboriginal people, that their voices are still heard in amongst this as well? Because it's really important that, yes, we have all levels of age demographic within Aboriginal people, but the younger people are the future as well. And to be fair, any decisions we make now will impact, they'll be adults probably by the time they're implemented, or by the time anything works, knowing how long things take. So it's very important that their voices are brought to the forefront when we're looking at representation. So how can we best do that?
Thanks, Emma. I think it's important to acknowledge that as young Aboriginal people, our role is always to listen to our elders and our old people, and we don't speak unless we're asked to speak. But in saying that, there is still an important place for the voices of Aboriginal young people. In 2021, we made up 51.1% of the total Aboriginal population, in that percentage was under 25. So over half of Aboriginal people are under 25. So I think there's definitely a strong place for the voice of young people. And in terms of amplifying that and providing a platform, there are a lot of different ways to go about this. I think some ideas are investing and creating where they don't exist, empowerment and education programs for our young people so that they have the tools to go out and become advocates if that's what they want to do, and have the education and skills to be able to do that and know about their rights and how they can fight for their rights in different ways. And another useful tool, I think, would be mandating in policy the inclusion of youth voices. But as you say, Emma, it's hard because you can have that role and make a recommendation and it can just be shelved, as always happens. But it can still have an impact. And another key strategy is to utilise media and technology to amplify young voices. So back in 2020, I remember when the Black Lives Matter movement was really prominent in the US and everywhere, and influencers would use their platforms with millions of followers and give it over to black creators so that they could have a literal voice in that way and reach that whole audience. So I think that's a great example of how you can use social media and technology and emerging technologies to give a voice to minority people. And I'm sure there are a lot of other great strategies that Gen Z can think of that I don't know. So there's a lot that can be done in that space too. And as well, having youth councils and advisory bodies is really useful. So yeah.
Thanks, Soph. So I think as well as having representation on all levels, what's really important is the way in which we work, how we make decisions, and the systems in place as well. So, Jade, I'd like to ask you, the way who we work with actually says a lot about who we are, right? Because people that you choose to work with is essentially people you choose to support. People that you give jobs to means you want to work with them and agree with them. So it says a lot about you, your business, the way in which you operate. So I just want to ask you, Jade, going forward after the failed referendum, has the way that you work changed? And if so, how?
Yeah, I think the way I've worked has changed a lot since the referendum. I'm not saying yes to as many jobs as I usually am. And yeah, I feel like we were yarning yesterday and I said, I feel like we're defined more by the jobs we say no to than the ones we say yes to. And being able to like take more control over the type of work that I'm doing and the stories that I'm telling, and making sure that I'm also getting something out of every job that I do. And you know, I'm so like a lot of artists, I guess, in a commercial space, like we're telling someone else's story or telling a company's story and doing something that'll make them feel good. Whereas I think we really need to be a lot more selfish, and make sure that we're always getting something out of it personally and culturally. And how is that client supporting us and creating culturally safe spaces for us to create artworks that tell our story, and to also do work that's done in more of an Indigenous way, and not being so set on what product they want, but just inviting mob to come in and have a conversation and just see where the project goes. So I've also, with any community projects, I've only taken on Indigenous-led community projects since then, and either that or projects where it's just for mob, so whether it's like youth or community. But yeah, they're the type of work that actually makes me feel good. And I'm just sick of being exhausted and run down and feeling like a commodity through my artwork and just through myself. And yeah, I think we really need to take care of ourselves and put our foot down and say no to projects that just don't feel right, because most of the time I feel like that client needs to go away and do more work on themselves as a company, whether they're just ticking off a box. Like, it really needs to come from the right place when they're engaging an artist or any mob to be a part of their project. Yeah, I feel like the head needs to be in the right space.
And there's a lot people can take away from that as well, even now being in the room, like who you work with, why, making sure you're doing it from a genuine place. It's not just ticking a box, because, I mean, will the box even be there in the future, really? Who knows? I'm mindful of time, and we want to make sure that we have enough time for questions from the audience. So I might just ask everyone one more question that you all can answer, and it's about the future and moving forward from the voice. Is there anything that you hope that we can do moving forward, or is there any strategies that you might suggest on how to get there? Or any just final words from all of our panellists before we open it up to the audience for any questions? So we might start with you, Auntie Carol.
I've been thinking about South Australia, for example. If South Australia could do what they've done around the voice, why couldn't it have been done without the referendum? And I think the way that the government could have approached it in a better way is when they went through the process of the voting and getting all the investment and materials and the expenditure, they could have just sat back and basically encouraged the states to take the action for what South Australia has done and made that a process of where we can go together. Because if we did it from a more of a regional or state-based process, we would be in a much stronger position to elevate that to a national level. The hardest thing for me to contemplate was the pitch against Aboriginal and Aboriginal. That was hard for me to understand that. And it's going to create more division amongst our people, because it'll be shopping around for the decision you want. And that's what we saw. A little bit differently, and what we can do better, I think, is that we all need to work in with local politicians to influence education, the truth. Fremantle, this town, how many of you from Fremantle? You got your mayor in the room. You don't usually get that. But it's about what your local area can do to help elevate and escalate education process, because you can't talk about wally up, wodge 'em up, because where's that come from? That's ours. That's our language. This country is older than all of us, but we need to build a platform together to get everyone to understand stronger. Fremantle's been doing that for a while with their new process of truth-telling, and I commend them for doing that. But this needs to happen on a much broader, faster scale to get it across the state. And I think that's where it can come into. So rather than just leaving education to the schools, universities and institutions, we need to put education into the community in a really fast social media, be more social media savvy and make it happen, because they were using social media on us and telling us how to vote and what to vote for. We were getting emails and texts from people we didn't even know. It still keeps happening from Yapoon, I get mine from. And I'm thinking, what are the mob up there wanting to ring me for? It was all around how this mass marketing campaign was happening across at the same time. So I think that sort of stuff, I think we just need to be more creative about how we do things. I love what Jake talked about is we challenge people who ask us for the jobs you do. What is in it for us, and how do you escalate and educate the community through your business community or whatever you're in control of? Start asking the questions, say, how, why? Because we don't do that. We all said yes because we've all been a part of this conversation to educate. You know, we've gone through a lot of pain, but not the pain that our old people have gone through. We've suffered nothing, to be honest. We've got a dent. We'll bounce back up. We've got our skills, our knowledge, and the way that we do things. We've got all of that. But collectively, we can have you. What can we do together is be important for me.
It's powerful, and it's all about walking together, really, and that's the work that you're doing, bringing people together. So maybe, Jay, do you want to go next, and then Soph and Tyson?
I wasn't expecting you to throw it.
Oh, that's all right. I'll repeat the question if you want. So just like how we move forward. Sorry,
Yeah.
Normally we go in a line, but
I like it.
just
Mix
throw a
it
spanner
up.
in the works.
Yeah, actually, there was something I wanted to mention before. Like, I spent the last couple of weeks just asking a lot of my artist friends about how they've felt since the referendum and how their work has changed. And like a lot of the elders in my family especially on my dad's side, in Alice Springs, and I was asking them how they feel their artwork has changed, and they said, nothing's changed. We already knew this is how Australia is. And then I was speaking to a lot of other young artists, and like we all took it like a big hit, and it has really knocked a lot of us over. And there are a few artists I know that haven't worked since, haven't created artwork since. They just can't. They're still trying to come to terms with what's happened. So yeah, even to continue what I was saying when I started crying, the moment that I found out the result of the referendum, I just wanted to be around mob and like just anyone. So I went on my phone and there was an Kylie Bracknell had just posted the video of her voting, and she dressed up full traditional, had her yonga buka on, and she was painted up, and she walked down with her tools right to the voting poll and put in her vote, and she was so confident. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, this is the energy that I want to be around. Like, this is so inspiring. So I messaged her straight away, and I ended up going to her house and spending the night with her and Clint and their family, and just cried. And like, I walked in, she just gave me the most beautiful hug, and I just sobbed and sobbed in their kitchen. And their attitude towards the whole thing was like, I didn't expect it, but they're like, this is what the fight has been. Like, this is how it's been this whole time. And it was horrible, but also to know, like, this is the experience that our grandparents have been going through, and our old people. And it isn't easy. Like, even though you think, oh, surely we can just get an advisory body, how hard can it be? Like, just do it. But this is the country that we're dealing with, and these are the attitudes of the people that we live around. And yeah, it was, I definitely have so much more appreciation for the fight that we've been going through, and all of the people that have walked the path before us, all our elders that are here today, all the ones that have passed on, everyone that's planted any kind of seed, or used their voice in any kind of way, use art to tell their stories. I think art is so much more important now more than ever, to use truth-telling as, this is like our weapon now, art. And I think art is beautiful, especially public art and murals, because you're able to reach everyone. It's not exclusive to just people that are going into a gallery. I think that's a super powerful thing about public art.
It is powerful. Imagine if all the Aboriginal artists stopped painting. Could you imagine? All the art industry for Australia. Just think about that. How powerful is that? Yeah. So I'll throw to you next. What would you like to see happen moving forward?
Well, I think from that result, we can say conclusively that it doesn't work for us to ask the country what they think. So we know that doesn't work. So we go back to the drawing board and come up with a new strategy. And I think, as Auntie Carol said, and has also been said to me from other senior people, that it has to be a state-based approach now. And even though the whole issue with legislating a voice is that it can be abolished, it seems like the next strongest option to try. And I think that it would be interesting to see how it goes in South Australia and Victoria, and why couldn't we do that here? I think that would go a long way to rebuilding my faith in this state and the people of this state as well, because it would be a step in the right direction instead of going backwards. And something I wanted to add too is that when thinking of a new strategy and a new approach to take, we have to do it with the non-Indigenous community and everyone who voted with us and walked with us, because we're such a small part of the population. But in saying that, this referendum was the culmination of the biggest consultation that there'd ever been across the country of our people. And as I was saying the first time, there was a consensus about what we wanted, but our people are the most over-researched, over-consulted people in the world, pretty much, when it comes to all different areas, and particularly in health. And I think it's important to balance that with having us lead the conversation, because you don't want to be, forcing people into rooms and over-consulting and not doing anything with that information, because that's all we've ever seen happen. But if there is consultation, for it to be meaningful and to have meaningful outcomes, which means actions and not just putting recommendations on a shelf like with every Royal Commission and things like that. So I think it's a balancing exercise that we all have to do together.
And you're right in saying it was the biggest survey ever conducted, and huge amount of data as well. And interestingly enough, a lot of people said, we can't take a political stance as an organisation because it's political. But yet the same organisations did it in the plebiscite as well, which is a political stance. So you see things like that. But lots of data, lots of studies have been done on it since the Voice to Parliament. ANU Centre for Social Impact has a study came out that said most of the reasons why people voted no was scare, fear, and that was kind of the reason really. So it doesn't really matter how true the truth may be. If someone's scared, like we said before, that's how you can force people to do things, right? And the final say to Tyson, moving forward, you've got so much experience in governance, in law, and like you spoke about representation as well, but moving on, what would you like to see?
I think I'd like to say, last year, that was my first referendum. I thought it was kind of cool for some reason, and not just like a normal election. It was something to do, and so I think that disappointment, and I'm sure you guys would have, some of you in the room today, it might have been your first referendum, and I'm sure when you grow older and you have one of those first stories to your grandchildren when you say, hey, I voted in this referendum, but I kind of I do a lot of running, so that's the sort of things I think about on long runs, and about those conversations, and I think how we can turn that sort of experiences and what we've analysed and observed is it's a bitter pill to say, but we still got to have hope because we're still trying to figure out this political structure, this system, and we're still just trying to work it out. And so the immediate implications that the result has led to is that there's still no long-term commitment to these issues. It's still a 4-year cycle, and it's used as a political football. And so is it our own political structure that restricts us for this long-term commitment? Or do we look at a truth commission at the state level and we peel back the layers of our history? Maybe that could be, I thought that might be a good strategy to combat the boogeyman, because I was hearing statements about I'm gonna lose my backyard, I'm gonna lose my house, or something like that, and it continues, and it's just, I don't know where it's coming from. So I think it really that, the education aspect, and really look for a long-term commitment, and I haven't given up at all, and I hope you haven't, and I think by being here tonight, I feel so much better, and in the next few years, or there'll be a new plan or a new group out there that is trying to bring the change. So I hope you're with us on that run as well. Thank you.